Hi, everybody. I'm Helen Cooper, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Helen Cooper School of Luxury. Welcome to another one of our series of In My Experience videos, where we talk to leading Indian entrepreneurs who are really starting to make a difference in the premium and luxury market, but also have managed to find a way to bring sustainability into that work right from the very start. So it's becoming part of the brand's DNA. I'm absolutely delighted to introduce you today to Rebecca Reubens. Rebecca's from Rhizome, which is a brand consultancy who's been doing design work for many years, since 2010, and working with a wide variety of clients. But recently, during the pandemic, she actually launched what she calls her lark of Shop Baka. And Shop Baka is a beautiful product range of highly sustainable, slow-produced jewellery that is something that I've been searching for years, and that is about sustainability, but at a very affordable price point. And Rebecca, if you can make some clip-on earrings, I'm going to be a customer for life, believe me. So over to you. Welcome. And today we're going to be, as usual, hosted by lovely Shreya Agarwal, our great colleague and journalist and blogger. And Shreya will be leading the conversation. I, as usual, will be taking lots of notes and probably butting in and asking questions. So over to you, Shreya.
Thank you, Helen. And thank you, Rebecca, for accepting our invitation.
My pleasure.
Doing this. Thank you so much. I was reading about the brand and I was reading about your journey, and I came across this article where it was mentioned about your very interesting journey, in terms of whatever you've done with design and sustainability and how Baka was born. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about the journey towards creation of the brand?
So I studied accessory design many light years ago, and then I went on to furniture design. And then I did my PhD in sustainability design. By the time I left, it was time for me to start my own design studio. So I gravitated towards furniture. It was really nice. My job experience had been in the international development sector. So I had been jet setting across countries and waking up in airplanes for the longest time, for about a decade. I left that job because I realized that for sustainability to actually make a difference, you have to do something local. And I thought I needed to have a venture which had more skin in the game. Thus, I founded Rhizome, because I think that unless the incomes of entrepreneurs and sustainability units are tied up to those who they are looking to sustain in the social segment, I don't think it's really going to work out to be a sustainable venture after all. So I wanted to explore this. So I started my PhD at Delft University in the Netherlands on the very unique topic of what sustainability means to the global south, because we talk about sustainability in the global north and we talk about environmental sustainability, but that's because they have the basis with they have comparatively less homeless people or poor people or kids not go to school. We have such huge social issues. So sustainability means something completely different in our context, and we have to do all that stuff. So I wanted to explore this area, and so I started my PhD in my design studio. And then the pandemic came along, and we were just playing around at the studio. We had all of this waste, and we came up with this one collection of, I think it was earrings with bamboo, which is predominantly the material I work with. And we just got such an amazing and unexpected response that we just started doing it more and more. And eventually, slowly, we just decided to crystallize it all into a brand.
It's amazing. And I think it's so interesting what you're saying there about the whole conversation about sustainability, very much driven by a northern perspective, if you like. And actually, you're right, when sustainability comes home, when it becomes local, it really starts to have more of an impact, which is so true. Really interesting. I'd love to read your thesis.
I'll send it to you.
Thank you.
And a very interesting point, Rebecca, that you've mentioned is how sustainability in the north is different from the south, right? Nowadays, if we talk about sustainability, I think it's become a fad, saying that everything has to be in terms of raw materials or it has to be organic. But we often tend to miss out on the fact that sustainability also means that it has to be circular economy, right? It's on a bigger scale.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure every business at the end of the day can adapt to that in some way or the other. So I think that's a very interesting point. um, as reading about the brand, it talks about, and I quote here, the Baka is a slow designed, contemporary, sustainably, ethically handcrafted jewelry brand by Rhizome. Rhizome, which I want to really talk about, and that of you I find really interesting, is basically India's first multidisciplinary sustainability design studio. So, can you tell us a little bit more about what you mean by sustainability design studio?
Yeah. So when I was studying sustainability, I realized that everybody's talking about sustainable design, and just by the definition of what that kind of phrase indicates, it seems like you're trying to sustain design. So it's sustainable design. But actually, you're not trying to sustain design. I think your endpoint should be to create a sustainable world. So you should look at the design of sustainability for the whole world and not just a product, right? So for that, you have to go beyond the product or the production to consumption systems that underpin it. For example, if I have a coffee machine and I make a paper cup as part of my design, it means a tree will be cut or paper will be recycled, right? If I have it as a metal cup, it means metal will be mined. If I have no cup, it means people are going to get their own cups. So every design decision has impacts, on sustainability in general. it just it just it just is up to you as to whether you want to take accountability for the impact you're having or not. Because if you design something which is wooden and a tree is going to be cut, you may say, oh, this was up to the company, they should have thought of it. So the point is, what drives people to design sustainably, and what are the things people need to look at to design sustainably. So during my research, I found out that people don't design sustainably because people view sustainability as an add-on to the design brief. So they think that either sustainability is going to cost more than a normal product,
Yeah.
or if it costs the same, it's going to be underperforming. So like,
Yeah.
except
Right.
that your shirt is not going to get as clean because it's a sustainable thing or whatever. So I really wanted to explore the space of a mainstream design brief on which sustainability is not an add-on but integral to the design brief. Where the product is the same cost, the same positioning, same everything. It's fundamentally you're just buying it because it's good design, not even because it's sustainable.
Right.
So I wanted to move out of that UNICEF for development space where they're putting these crying children in front of you and saying that donate your money because it's for a good cause. I think that design is one of the things which is supposed to be sustainable. You're supposed to earn enough money, and it's a profession. So no matter who is funding it, if you can't stand on your own feet, you're fundamentally doing something wrong. So I wanted to practice sustainable design with more skin in the game in the mainstream space, which is why I founded Rhizome.
Incredible. Really true. Very inspiring, actually. You're quite right that sustainability is kind of that extra. Oh, and if you can make it sustainable, then even better. But that's because people are thinking of it as a PR exercise rather than actually
Right.
being core to the brand and core to the design and the work that's going on. Fascinating.
And it's very important, as you mentioned, that it has to be the integral bit of it. It cannot be an add-on feature, right? That
Yeah.
okay, next another thing that I need to look at is my product to be more sustainable. So I think that's it's very important, especially in this space, because I feel that you've studied the subject. Not many study the subject, so they've got a very superficial knowledge when it comes to that. So I think, yeah, the more we start talking about it, the more people get educated about it. They start seeing this in a different light. Um, so again, I was reading through it, and I stumbled upon this piece where there was this very interesting story about the brand name that you came up with, which is Baka. And since we love talking about branding, and we believe that a brand name is very important and crucial to the brand, right? So why don't you tell us a little bit more about how you stumble upon this?
So it was very interesting from the perspective of branding when we decided to do this jewelry thing as a standalone venture. Um, at first, I was really tempted to put it under Rhizome, but then the feedback I got was Rhizome was so established in the decor space. So I didn't want to endanger any of my brand value at Rhizome by putting Baka into the Rhizome kitty, because then you become one of those, jack of all kind of brands
Right.
who does nothing really well. Then I thought of calling it Rebecca Reubens, but then that was very funny because I mean there have often been these instances where people think I'm a white woman, and I've gotten these calls that like, where are you? And I'm like, I'm at the checkup point, and they're like, but there's just a little Indian girl in sneakers, and I'm like, I am the little Indian girl in sneakers. So so that was like really fraught with like these really hysterical episodes. So I thought, "No, this is not interesting." Um, then I came upon this calling it Baka, because Baka is what my parents and my brother call me at home. And I researched more about the word Baka, and I found out that Baka means fool in Japanese, and this really resonated with my journey. I mean, I just did an interview the other day, and someone said that, why did you do this? And I answered, for sheer stupidity, and at some level, it was really sheer stupidity because it was the pandemic. I was in the middle of writing a book. Rhizome was, doing some new collections, and we were moving also into a range of wooden furniture. So it was so many million things going on, and then it was sheer stupidity to do this. And I think that if I'd really thought it out, probably using my rationale, I would have thought, no, this is something I don't want to do now.
Yeah.
But I think that the fool did not know it was impossible, so she did it kind of situation. So that's why I decided to go.
Sometimes the naive entrepreneur is one of the best, because if you don't have the fear, if you don't actually know how difficult it may be, or the challenges that you're going to face, then nothing holds you back in your mind. Nothing is impossible. And
Exactly.
when you have that attitude when you're starting out in a business, actually that makes it much more possible that you're going to be successful. If you start out with fear, you probably aren't going to be able to make it through. So yeah, I'm a total believer in that. That's been my mode all the way through my life. So I'm glad to meet another fellow naive entrepreneur.
And also, I think here I would love to highlight the fact that you thought through the reason of not introducing under Rhizome. And it's important for the brands to understand how you should architect your brand so that it doesn't get diluted, right? As you mentioned, that that it comes across as yet another venture that the brand is doing. So I think it's very crucial for a person who has an established brand to kind of think, if we are introducing another product, should we introduce it under the brand, or should we have it as the child of the brand? So I think that's something very credible.
Sure, now we are in the space of omni-channel marketing, and everybody is really trying to figure out what to do with omni-channel marketing, because when online stuff came, into being, everybody felt that the brick and mortar store was going to be redundant.
Right.
And then came COVID, and COVID saw even shoppers who had never shopped before, people who were 40 and above, who insisted on going to brick and mortar stores, being online. And then the pandemic converted them into offline shoppers because they were the most vulnerable segment. And now, post-pandemic, we don't even know what the brick and mortar store is going to be like.
Yeah.
So everybody is in this kind of omni space where there is no division between anything. Brick and mortar is working with online, with social media, and brands are like on third-party sites. So everything is just so much in flux that I think that keeping your brands separate until they are of the stature to be in the same stable was really something that really was important to me, because it would have been counterproductive to Rhizome had I decided to club them together.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a very, very smart move, I must say. And it's crucial to put in that thought, understanding what the situation you are in and how do you predict the brand until you know if it's going to work or not, right? It's something that I feel is very crucial when anybody thinks about creating a brand and even positioning it in the market. So about the let's talk a little bit about the products that the brand creates. Again, we're just going to keep it very short in terms of this is especially for an understanding of the Indian brand as per se. So I know the brand takes inspiration from past and traditions and kind of molds it into modern jewelry, bringing in the aesthetics of the previous traditions and all. So how important do you think that was for the Indian brand, for example? Because I feel that Indian brands, they hold so much of potential with the products that they create, but sometimes they need to be adapted for the global market to go global, right? So anything that you would share from your experience on that?
I think that in the end, what you're going to be best at and most successful at are the same thing. So you have to know what you can do the best, in terms of from concept to costing to marketing to the entire strategy of things. I think that it's really difficult as a designer, even though you're trained to be empathetic, to understand what somebody in Iceland is going through, or what they would really want. So at some level the distance helps, but I think that what we know best is what is around us, right? So as an Indian designer, I think that I would be best positioned to speak about what is in India, and it would also be my USP conceptually and otherwise in terms
Yeah.
of positioning myself. If I make a product that is so generic that it could be from anywhere, then that means I'm opening up competition from manufacture from anybody who can manufacture cheaper. So Philippines or Bali or Africa soon. So I think that it's really important to do something that is in your bioregion. Even from the sustainability perspective, it makes the most sense. Culturally, also, I think that the general homogeneity of the world is beginning to freak me out. I really like the fact that a McDonald's is forced to serve rice in China. So, I think food and maybe religion are the only things that are like kind of less corrupted by globalization. And I really think that it's important for us to keep these threads of originality alive, and which is why cultural sustainability is really important for me, which is why I take inspiration from culture. I also think that a lot of times culture and tradition comes with this giant do not touch sign attached to it.
Right.
And I think that we need to kind of realize that if it is frozen in time and it's not moving culturally, then it's going to die, right? If something doesn't move, it's dead. So I think we need to keep culture dynamic, to not have that do not touch sign, to examine practices. I mean, everybody has had, for example, a patriarchal society, whether it's north, south, east, or west. And if someone's had some kind of genocide, someone's had another kind of genocide, like the Crusades or burning witches. I mean, everybody's had their own share of things that they wish didn't happen, right? So instead of not talking about it, what if we were to examine it and to talk about it and to create artifacts and material cultures that kind of contributed to it hopefully not happening again by discourse and keeping it fresh in the minds of people who consume culture. So this is why I generally take inspiration from Indian systems, not to kind of copy them in the sense, but kind of to use it as a kind of a conversation starter among people who might wear it or consume it in whatever way about sustainability in general. And I think that this is what is going to eventually make people sustainable. Not that
Absolutely.
stuff available, but changing the culture of consumption towards sustainability.
Yeah, completely agree. And, the idea of everybody having to become almost the lowest common denominator and very generic in their look and feel just, is sad and wrong. As you say, actually, that the world is getting bored of this homogeneity, actually. It's looking for things that are quite different. People feel more connected to different parts of the world, and we need to find the ways to do it. When I look on your shop, on Shop Baka, there is nothing in there that I think wouldn't sell in the UK. Nothing. You don't have to change anything about it, because the interesting fact is where it's come from, and the styling, the story, the design idea, and the sustainability. All of these elements really start to make it a much more interesting thing to be buying, rather than just anything else that you can find in the shops. And so you know, you have to carry on. You have to be true to what you are, and I think that is a crucial part. Whilst there are some designs that I've seen in Indian jewelry which are too heavy, they're too typically old Indian. Contemporary Indian design is fabulous, and you know, you can see it on yours. I'm seeing you've got the Avani earrings. Love that. The story of that is beautiful, and yet at the end of the day, you know, we need to be telling more people so that they also understand where things have come from. You know, the Brits were probably at the centre of most of those things you were talking about. So we're here to listen now. We want to learn, and we want to be part of participating in the world in a better way, if I say.
My mother is actually an Anglo-Indian, Helen, so I've seen it from both sides. So
Good.
I've gone through the entire thing of the natives and the non-natives. So I mean, I think that no one is fundamentally good or bad. It just depends on the lenses through which you see situations.
Exactly.
And I think that somebody at 40 and 60 and 20 are entirely different people. And myself, I think I'm different in the morning when I don't want to wake up, and different in the night when I want to fall asleep. So I think it's just about accepting that things are a spectrum, and change is going to happen.
Yeah.
So,
no.
And
fantastic.
And it's quite interesting now, Rebecca, you've mentioned that now we need to create things which are also conversational starters, right? It just cannot be yet another product. That's where I think an individual will even resonate with the brand that they want to buy. For example, if I am a Baka customer, it's because I resonate with the brand in some aspect here. It cannot be just another jewelry in my closet. So I think that's also very important now that again, where we are moving across homogeneity and we are talking more about individualism. So these are the associations I think an individual will have with the brand, and they kind of project the personality the person also has. So I think it's extremely crucial that we stop making things so generic and start moving towards brands that actually speak your language, or you would want to be part of that kind of culture.
Absolutely.
And just on the last thing I want to speak to you about this, which you beautifully mentioned, and you mentioned somewhere that the craft is a high value thing, right? And it is something which is a low volume production. And in India, however, we see sometimes we tend to not value craft so much because it's available in so much of abundance, right? So can you throw some light around how we can raise the value of craft in India and bring together the craft and culture concept?
So, I mean, I think that craft was the main method of producing things, right, before the industrialized, mechanism and all of these things came in. So even if you look at the global north, before they had industrialization, they too made stuff by hand.
Yeah.
Right. And after industrialization, they had many movements actually which spoke out against industrialization. So they had the arts and crafts movement, and many other. They had Luddites who would go and break the textile machines in the night. So the fact that you transfer things, you transfer machinery to be produced by which were being produced by humans into machines is very detrimental to the general economy, though it grows the GDP of a nation. I mean, this is a fact, right? Um, so now you see people in the global north trying to recreate their craft heritage. So they have these knitting clubs and different kinds of things because they realize that it's also, a process of learning, slowing down, not being cookie cutter. And it's like now a yearning to not consume those things which are mass produced. I think that we in India should learn from this trajectory of mistakes and not do the same, right? Because we have somehow managed to sustain our craft traditions, not through our great effort, but simply because we're a really large, underdeveloped country and that industrialization couldn't penetrate our smallest cities. And also because craft was so tightly wound up with religion and ritual in our space that no matter how many shorts you wear to office or to play, you'd still get married in a sari or something like that. I mean, highly likely, right? But I think that we need to also start giving credit to the maker. And that's kind of difficult in our context because we have so many faceless makers.
Yes.
So what they've done in the global north is they've managed to align the maker with an artist through the studio craft movement. And I really think we need to really look more at that space. And this doesn't mean that every karigar or every producer has to be an artist. But just because you're not educated, it doesn't mean you're not an artist.
Yeah.
So we need to leave formal spaces for that to happen. Also, I mean, around the world, there are countries like Japan, like Korea. They have attributed their success to their craft heritage. Like Germany's precision engineering comes from a strong tradition of craftsmanship. So do the Swiss acknowledge this. So, I mean, I think that we need to stop looking at craft as like a homogeneous kind of a category where everything is cheap and mass produced and allow space. Like maybe you have mass produced some things, but maybe you have couture some things, and maybe you have a high street variant of the same. So I think that there needs to be space for craft to become like low volume, high value products, which are more aligned to couture, which is what has happened in the rest of the world in any case. It's just that because human beings earn more money there, they don't want to do the mass production, which human beings don't earn that much money here and who take on that responsibility. But I mean, I think that there needs to be space for craftspeople to emerge as artists and not just a favor that designers or stores do by kind of giving them a small spotlight at the end of their ramp show or something like that, which I think is actually quite patronizing in that sense.
Yes, absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
It's a I think it's a conversation that requires its own time and justice to it, even to talk about it. I feel, especially in the Indian domain.
We'll be having you back. Don't worry.
Yes, definitely on this topic. Absolutely, it's extremely important that we start valuing craft and just stop seeing it as a high volume production because it's available around us at such an ease in international market, because the people are limited, so the sources are limited, and hence that causes that I would say the shortage in the market, and that's why the value increases. But just because I think this awareness is very important for the Indian market. Okay, on the last note, Rebecca, one piece of advice for our entrepreneurs who would want to either rebrand themselves or get into branding of new products or create a business of their own?
I think it's just a general thing. I mean, I tell my kids, and that my mother told me, number one, be honest. Number two, be fearless. And number three, pick yourself up if you fall. I mean, I don't think that there's anything else that entrepreneurship circles around than these three things. Just keep on picking yourself up, because I don't think that being fearless means being stupid. I think you have to take courage comes from knowing what can go wrong and deciding to do it anyway.
Absolutely.
So I think that the fact that you're stupid means that you realize what can go wrong. So knowing that, I mean, just be fearless after that, because things can go wrong and they will. But
yeah, absolutely
things will go wrong, definitely will. But I think that grit to continue is extremely important. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for such a lovely conversation on a Saturday morning. It was so good speaking to you. Helen, anything that you would like to add?
I just think it's really inspiring, actually, and I'm so glad that we had the chance to talk to you. What you've done, you have an intelligence about the way you're thinking about the sustainability, which I think is fantastic, because all angles are being considered. Looking at sustainability through design, looking about social sustainability, understanding kind of the other the global context. It's quite right. Yes, Japan, Korea, Germany, Switzerland, they all base their success around craft, and yet India has that craft and it's not basing its success on it at the moment. It's doing it through IT or other things like that, but actually there's so much more to be going at. So it would be a delight to come back and have a chat with you, and I'm sure there's more that we would learn from you. But for today, thank you so much, Rebecca Reubens from Rhizome and Baka. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having me.